In preparation for exploring the concept of worldview and religion as an essential component of this study, we need to look closely at the even larger picture which embraces all aspects of human existence, the concept of culture. Dr. Don Owens, missionary, anthropologist, and longtime friend, provided the resources to help with this lecture. Since the use of the word is viewed differently in so many instances, especially among anthropologists, for our current use, we will define culture as the more or less integrated systems of ideas, feelings, and values, and their associated patterns of behavior, and products shared by a group of people who organize and regulate what they think, feel, and do. This is from Hebert, 1985-30. Ideas, feelings, and value. These are the three basic dimensions of culture. Ideas, the cognitive dimension. This aspect of culture has to do with the knowledge shared by members of a group or society. Without shared knowledge, communication and community life are impossible. Cognitive assumptions shape the mental categories people use for thinking. They play a vital role in determining the kinds of authority people trust and the types of logic they use. Taken together, these assumptions give order and meaning to life and reality. Again, this is Hebert. Existential or cognitive assumptions furnish people with their concepts of time, space, and other worlds. For instance, in the West, we assume that time is linear and uniform. It runs like a straight line from a beginning to an end, and it can be divided into uniform intervals such as years, days, minutes, and seconds. Other cultures see time as cyclical, a never-ending repetition of summer and winter, day and night, birth, death, and rebirth, and growth and decay. Let's talk about feelings and the affective assumptions. Affective assumptions underlie the notions of beauty, style, and aesthetics found in a culture. They influence people's taste in music, art, dress, food, and architectures, as well as the way we feel towards each other and about life in general. Values, the evaluative assumptions. Evaluative assumptions provide the standards people use to make judgments, including their criteria for determining truth and error, likes and dislikes, and the right and wrong. Evaluative assumptions also determine the priorities of a culture and thereby shape the desires and allegiances of a people. More or less integrated indicate that cultures and cultural frames are never fully integrated. Human beings and their beliefs are never fully consistent. There are gaps and internal contradictions in their theories, just as there are in their behaviors. As members of a society, differences in beliefs from one individual to another in modern complex societies are so great that we may talk about personal rather than cultural worldviews. Individuals may be in crisis of belief to the point of questioning the convictions of their culture. However, if the society is unified in its beliefs, change will be resisted by some means. Thus, worldviews help us understand cultural stability and resistance to change. Integration is limited by the fact that all cultures are constantly changing, some rapidly and some more slowly. New traits may be added that impact the other areas of culture. Some traits are dropped. All these changes call for a new cultural synthesis or orientation. Inconsistencies, competing theories, and changes in customs underline the internal harmony of a culture. But as long as a minimal culture integration exists, organized social life is possible. Now here's a tentative definition of a worldview. And I'm not good at German, but I'll do my best with this. Weltanschauung, and for you Germans out there, you can fix it, or worldview is a people's total response to the universe, or as anthropologists use the term, the corpus of beliefs around the world shared by the members of a society. So as we have indicated, not all individuals or segments of a society may share all components alike, but they are shared by a predominant segment of that society. A worldview includes beliefs about God, gods or no gods, beliefs about the world, beliefs about truth and ethics, and beliefs about humankind. Studying worldviews are largely implicit. How can we study them? As we study a people's culture, we must infer their basic assumptions from their beliefs and practices. We need to look for similarities and common themes that seem to run through like a thread through a wide range of cultural beliefs and behaviors to arrive at the most satisfying conclusions. One, we need to examine the language in order to discover the categories the people use in their thinking. We need to study their symbols and their rituals, such as festivals and rites for birth, marriage, and death. We need to study their literature and the methods of enculturation. We need to ascertain changes in thought and practices that have occurred over time and through possible acculturative processes. We also need to adopt comparative standards with our own. As we exercise, let us consider some dynamic themes in a North American worldview. First, here is a definition of cultural themes. Rather than having one dominant motif or pattern in a culture, cultures are composed of a set of multiple cultural themes or dynamic affirmations characteristic of a culture. Affirmations which actively structure the way people view reality. These dynamic themes are confronted or impacted by counter themes, which provide stability in a culture. Okay, let's talk about some of the cultural assumptions that are in our North American views. First, a real and rational world. We see the world as rational and orderly and operating according to natural laws that can be discovered and understood by human reason. Matter obeys the law of physics and chemistry, and animals reflect the laws of biology, physiology, and psychology and sociology. We make sharp distinction between actual events, myths, facts, and fiction, reality, and illusions. This perception of reality is rooted in a Judeo-Christian belief that God created a universe that exists outside of but dependent on himself, or obeys the laws of physics or concepts found in the natural sciences. Greek dualism has led to a sharp distinction between science and religion. Many Westerners today use science to explain the natural world and limit religion to miracles and visions or matters of ultimate concern. Most cultures do not make a sharp distinction between the natural and the supernatural. For them, the supernatural pervades the natural. Humans versus nature. As North Americans, we draw a sharp line between humans and other forms of life. We see humans as having a unique value. This view is partly a Christian legacy. Humans are viewed as having eternal souls and as unique beings are believed to be in charge of the natural world. Thus, we have social and human engineering to control the physical world and harness its resources for the material welfare and service of man. Other societies have alternative assumptions. In much of the Far East, humans are considered to be a part of nature and the physical world. Thus, stress unity and harmony between the natural environment and man-made structures. People in other cultures see themselves as being overwhelmed by the natural world. It is dangerous and animated by the presence of spirits. Thus, they are helpless and distrust the physical environment, concerns that extend to the social and political life of that society. Materialism and property. North Americans tend to judge humans by what they own. We measure achievement and success primarily by the quantity of material goods a person possesses. We tend to equate happiness more with material wealth rather than with intellectual and spiritual qualities. We tend to judge other cultures by their technological developments. The concept of private ownership stands in sharp contrast to much of the tribal world, where land, boats, houses, and even food belong to the larger groups of family, lineages, associations, or the tribe. Progress. For the most part, North Americans believe in progress. They look for a better way of life and think of this largely in material terms. Technology will solve most problems. Peasant societies tend to be suspicious of others who are always getting ahead. Let's look at an analytical approach. North Americans love to analyze situations. They believe the world is orderly and predictable. Time and money will solve most problems. Lack of progress, problems, and technological problems are all problems that can be understood and solved. People in many cultures see the world as basically incomprehensive. Fatalism prevents them from making efforts to change their conditions. Let's look at either-or thinking. And we talked a little bit about this when we were talking about ethics. In their analysis of situations, North Americans tend to sort reality into opposing categories, which are often assigned moral values. Twofold judgments seem to be the rule: moral, immoral, legal, illegal, right, wrong, sin, virtue, black, white, success, failure, civilized, primitive, practical, impractical, secular, religious, work, play, public, private. So everything in our thinking is either or. Planning and pragmatism. In a rational, orderly world, it is possible to plan for the future, to set goals and achieve them. The apparent reluctance to plan in some societies is frustrating for most North Americans. Pragmatism means generally examining several solutions and choosing between them. Some societies think it better to be a good person and build relationships. Let's look at other characteristics of North Americans. This is an important caution. Within the cluster of characteristic worldviews, there are counter themes that help provide equilibrium. Production and profit, energy and work ethic. Individualism, one of the most fundamental themes in the worldview of the United States. Autonomous persons, choose for ourselves, be ourselves. Our belief that all people have inalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. In our search for identity, the need to achieve and the need for recognition. For self-reliance is at the heart of North America's identity. They fear to have to depend on others to be without money or be without money. They expect people to take care of themselves. As humanitarianism, the emphasis on the worth of the individual calls for humanitarianism. Disasters, famines, and earthquakes, orphans are also responded to. For equality, the concept of the dignity of each individual is tied to a fundamental assumption: the equality of all human beings, equal opportunity in social and economic standards of living, opportunity, is not the same as an automatic leveling of everyone's to the same standard of living, which is oftentimes called socialism. Direct and confrontational. When faced with a problem, we want immediately to get to its source, that is, meeting the problem head on. Now, we have looked briefly at some of the major themes in the North American worldview. You may want to view this presentation a couple of times. Obviously, there are many more, and those who have considered need to be examined in far more detail. Not all Westerners share all of these assumptions, for we are influenced by the particular cultures in which we were raised. We need to examine our cultural assumptions carefully. for many of them run counter to Christian thought. They need to be examined in the light of Scripture, and that's Hebert. So think about our ideas here related to an American worldview as compared to others. And throughout the next few weeks, you will get a chance to examine your worldview in comparison to what we study. So the best to you.